the CEO saw the cleaner's bruises. And his reaction left everyone in shock. What if I told you that one simple act of compassion could change not just one life, but an entire company forever? Stay with me until the very end, because this is a story that will make you rethink the power of kindness, courage, and standing up for what's right. The story begins in a tall glass building in the heart of the city. It was the headquarters of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, a place where innovation thrived and money flowed like water. But inside that glamorous world, hidden away from the spotlight, was a quiet man most employees never even noticed: Daniel, the cleaner. Daniel was in his late 30s, tall but slightly hunched, with kind eyes that always seemed tired. Every morning before dawn and every night long after the office is emptied, Daniel walked the same halls with his mop, his bucket, and a silence so deep you could hear the faint squeak of his shoes on the polished floors. To most employees, he was invisible. Just another cleaner. But Daniel carried scars most people could never imagine. He worked 2 jobs to support his daughter, Mia, a bright 10-year-old who dreamed of becoming an artist. His wife had left years ago, and Daniel was both mother and father to the girl. Life was already hard enough, but what no one knew was that at night, behind the closed doors of his apartment, Daniel was enduring something much darker. His landlord, a bitter, cruel man who had power over Daniel because he owed months of back rent, often used intimidation and violence to remind Daniel of his place. Daniel bore the beatings in silence, too ashamed to tell anyone, too scared of losing the tiny roof over his daughter's head. The bruises on his arms and ribs became his private burden, carefully hidden beneath long sleeves and quiet smiles. One rainy Thursday evening, fate intervened. The CEO of the company, Mr. Alexander Hart, had stayed late at the office, preparing for an important board meeting. Known for his sharp business mind and intimidating presence, Hart wasn't the type to mingle with employees outside the executive circle. But that night, as he left his office around 10 p.m., he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. In the break room, under the flickering fluorescent lights, Daniel was struggling to lift a heavy trash bag. As he moved, his sleeve slipped up, and deep purple bruises marked his arm. Hart froze. For reasons he didn't understand, he didn't walk away. He stepped closer. "Daniel, isn't it?" Hart's voice carried the authority of a man used to being obeyed. Daniel straightened quickly, nervous. "Yes, sir." "Good evening, sir." He tugged his sleeve down, hoping the CEO hadn't noticed. But Hart had, and he wasn't the type to ignore what he saw. "Where did you get those bruises?" Hart asked firmly. Daniel's heart pounded. His first instinct was to lie, to say he fell, to shrug it off. But something in Hart's tone, a rare softness beneath the steel, made him hesitate. For the first time in years, he allowed the truth to slip past his lips. "It's nothing, sir. Just some problems at home." Hart studied him carefully. This wasn't the tone of a man looking for pity. It was the tone of someone drowning quietly, too proud and too afraid to ask for help. "Sit down," Hart said, pulling out a chair. Daniel tried to protest, but Hart insisted. And so, for the first time, Daniel told his story. About Mia. About the endless shifts. About the landlord. About the fists he endured in silence. He spoke with trembling hands, ashamed, expecting judgment or dismissal. But what he received instead was something that left him in shock. The next morning, the entire office buzzed with whispers. Something unprecedented had happened. Hart, the feared and respected CEO, had called a company-wide meeting. In front of hundreds of employees, Hart walked onto the stage, and to everyone's astonishment, Daniel the cleaner walked beside him. Hart's voice carried through the hall. "For too long, we walk past people without really seeing them. We measure worth by titles and salaries, and we forget the human beings who hold us together. Last night, I realized that one of our own, someone who has quietly taken care of this building for years, has been suffering in silence. And I will not stand by while injustice thrives under my roof." He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "This man is Daniel. He is not just our cleaner. He is a father, a fighter, and someone who deserves every bit of respect that any of us do." The room erupted in murmurs. Daniel stood frozen, tears welling in his eyes. He had never been seen, never been valued like this before. Hart wasn't finished. He announced that the company would provide Daniel and his daughter with safe housing immediately, cover his daughter's education, and restructure company policies to ensure that every employee, no matter their role, had access to mental health support, legal aid, and financial counseling. But the most shocking part? Hart personally confronted Daniel's landlord with legal force, ensuring that man would never lay a hand on him again. What followed was nothing short of transformative. Daniel, once invisible, became a symbol within the company, a reminder that compassion and leadership go hand in hand. Employees began looking at each other differently, treating the janitors, the receptionists, the assistants, with the same respect as executives. Productivity soared, but more importantly, so did morale. And Daniel? He no longer walked with his head bowed. He stood tall, proud, and most importantly, safe. His daughter Mia flourished, her drawings decorating Hart's office walls as a daily reminder of why kindness mattered. Years later, at Mia's graduation, Hart sat in the audience beside Daniel, tears in his eyes as he watched her accept her scholarship to art school. What had begun as bruises hidden in the shadows had become a story of resilience, dignity, and the ripple effect of one man's decision to care. So what's the lesson here? Sometimes the people who need help the most are the ones who hide it best. It costs nothing to see someone, to ask, to listen. But it can change everything, and that's why the day the CEO saw the cleaner's bruises, his reaction shocked everyone, because it reminded the world that true power isn't in wealth or status. True power is in compassion.